The bark heard. Around the block, you never really know your neighbors until they start complaining about your dog. My name's Ethan Carter, and my best friend is a 90-pound German Shepherd named Max. He's big, loud, and honestly, he's got a bark that could wake the dead. But he's also loyal, gentle with kids, and smarter than most people I know. We moved into the Maplewood subdivision 6 months ago, a tidy little neighborhood with perfectly trimmed lawns, mailbox flowers, and one woman who ruled it all, Karen Holloway, president of the Homeowners Association. You know the type. Blonde bob haircut, always holding a clipboard, and a constant smile that doesn't reach her eyes. For the first few months, everything was fine. Max and I kept to ourselves. We jogged in the mornings, worked from home, and only interacted with the neighbors when they waved. Then, one sunny Saturday, it all started to fall apart. I was washing my truck when Max barked at a squirrel. Just one bark, not even a full growl session. But apparently, that was enough for Karen. She marched out of her perfect house, wearing her pastel cardigan like armor. "Ethan," she called, her voice sharp enough to slice butter. "Your dog is disturbing the peace again." I blinked. Again? He barked once too many times, she snapped. "We have rules in this community. Aggressive dogs are not welcome here. Aggressive." Max wagged his tail as if to prove her wrong. I tried to stay calm. "Karen, he's not aggressive. He's a working dog. He's trained." She crossed her arms. "Trained or not, the HOA has received complaints." "From who?" I asked. She smiled. "That's confidential." Translation. Just her. Before I could reply, she handed me a bright yellow paper, a formal HOA warning about disturbances caused by domestic animals. 3 warnings meant a fine. 5 meant eviction, I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that Max was my family. But I just watched her walk away, her heels clicking like a metronome of authority. That night, I sat on my porch with Max. He laid his head on my lap, looking up at me with those soft brown eyes that said, "Don't worry, I got you." But inside I was fuming. She wanted to call my dog aggressive? Fine. She wanted to embarrass me in front of everyone? Fine. But she had no idea who she was messing with. You see, before I started working remotely, I used to train military working dogs. And if there's one thing I learned, it's that you can't fight noise with noise. You fight it with control and creativity. So I came up with a plan. The next morning, I started Phase 1, Operation B. I pulled out my sewing kit, some bright yellow fabric, and a pair of novelty wings from last Halloween. I didn't need Max to be scary. I needed him to be adorable. 3 hours later, Max looked like the world's largest bumblebee. I couldn't stop laughing. Even he looked confused but proud. Then came Phase 2, retraining. Every time Karen's car pulled into her driveway, I gave Max a signal. Instead of barking, he'd roll over and over. Sometimes twice, just for fun. The other neighbors started noticing. They'd laugh, wave, and film him for TikTok. The clip went viral overnight. "Big scary dog rolls over when Karen arrives." The next HOA meeting was going to be interesting. 2 days later, I was summoned. Karen stood at the head of the table in the community center, glaring like I'd insulted her petunias. "Mr. Carter," she said, "your behavior is mocking the HOA." "My dog just rolls over," I said, smiling. "Is that against the rules now?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even Mr. Jenkins from across the street couldn't hide his grin. Karen's face turned red. "You're being deliberately disruptive." "Disruptive?" I shrugged. "He's dressed as a bee, Karen. He's spreading buzz." That line broke the room. The laughter was uncontrollable. Karen stormed out before the meeting even ended. But I could tell this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, as I sat with Max watching the sunset, a small envelope slid under my door. Inside was a photo of Max sitting on my porch, with a note written in block letters. "One more incident and both of you are gone." I looked at Max. He tilted his head. "This just got personal," I muttered, and Max barked once, like he agreed. The HOA war begins. The morning after the anonymous note, I realized 2 things. First, Someone in this neighborhood had nothing better to do than stalk me. Second, Karen wasn't just angry anymore. She was plotting. Max and I went for our usual jog. The air was crisp, the sun painting the houses gold. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. But when we passed Karen's driveway, I noticed her camera, a shiny new motion-activated security system aimed straight at my house. "Subtle," I muttered. Max tilted his head. He could sense my irritation. "Don't worry, buddy," I said. "We'll handle it our way." That afternoon, the HOA posted new guidelines, printed, laminated, and nailed to the community board right next to the mailbox's rule, No. 27. No costumes or attire on animals that may cause distraction or nuisance. Rule number 28, all pet activities must be reported in advance to HOA management. Rule 29, residents must maintain proper decorum when interacting with HOA officials. They'd basically written an entire page just to target me. I stood there reading while a few neighbors gathered. "Seriously," said Mrs. Parker, clutching her coffee. "Since when do we need permission for costumes?" "It's ridiculous," added Mr. Jenkins. "Your dog's the best thing that's happened here." That gave me an idea, the first spark of Phase 3. That evening, I invited a few neighbors over for barbecue. Nothing fancy, just burgers, some music, and Max in his usual bee outfit, wagging his tail proudly. Word spread fast. Before I knew it, half the street showed up. The kids played fetch with Max. The adults laughed about Karen's new rules. Someone started calling it the BBQ. It was the first time I'd seen the whole community smiling together. Then headlights flared at the end of the block. Karen's white Lexus. "Oh, a boy," muttered Jenkins. She stepped out like a general arriving at a battlefield, clipboard in hand. "Ethan," she said, "you didn't request permission for this gathering." "It's a friendly get-together," I said. "No HOA rule against that?" Her eyes darted to Max, who was now lying on his back, rolling over while 3 kids giggled beside him. "That animal," she began. "Is having the time of his life," I finished. The laughter from the crowd drowned her out. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "You'll regret this," she hissed quietly, then turned and left. The next morning I woke to find a pink slip taped to my front door. Violation notice, multiple infractions. Fine $500, payable within 7 days. That wasn't just petty, it was war. I called the HOA office. "On what grounds are you fining me?" The clerk stammered. "Mr. Carter, the president logged several disturbances, noise, gatherings, costume violations. I cut him off." "You mean the BBQ that half the neighborhood attended?" Silence, then a sigh. "Look, man," he whispered, "off the record, everyone thinks this is stupid. But Karen, she's got connections." That confirmed what I suspected. Karen wasn't acting alone anymore. For the next few days, strange things started happening. My trash cans disappeared. A "for sale" sign mysteriously appeared on my lawn. And one night, someone dumped a bag of dog poop on my porch. Karen was trying to break me, but she didn't understand something crucial. I wasn't just a guy with a dog. I was a trainer, a strategist, and a man with a sense of humor sharper than her clipboard. So I launched Phase 4, the Neighborhood Smile campaign. Every morning, Max and I walked the block. He wore a new costume every day, a pirate hat, a firefighter vest, a tiny police uniform, each one cuter than the last. The kids loved it. People waved. Cars slowed down to take pictures. I even started a little online page, Max the Bee Shepherd. Within a week, we had 50,000 followers. And guess what? Karen couldn't find me for any of it, not legally. Anyway, because every costume was labeled as safety gear or emotional support apparel. Technicalities, sure, but HOA law was full of those. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low, I heard shouting down the street. Karen was standing in front of her house, surrounded by angry neighbors. Apparently, she'd just tried to ban Halloween decorations for visual uniformity. That was the last straw. Mr. Jenkins shouted, "You're ruining the neighborhood, Karen." Mrs. Parker waved her phone. "We're recording this. Everyone's tired of your nonsense." Karen's face turned crimson. "I'm simply enforcing order." She snapped. That's when Max trotted over, wearing his bee outfit again, and rolled over right at her feet. The crowd burst into laughter. It was chaos. Karen stormed off, yelling something about taking this to the board. That night, I sat on my porch again with Max. He leaned into me, tail thumping lazily. "Good boy," I whispered. "You're doing great." But just as I started to relax, I noticed movement across the street. Karen's window glowed faintly blue. A computer screen. She was typing furiously. Whatever she was doing next, it wasn't another letter, it was bigger, and for the first time since this started, I felt a flicker of worry. The sting operation. If Karen wanted a war, she was about to get one. But I wasn't going to fight her with anger or complaints. I was going to fight her with strategy, patience, and just the right amount of chaos. It all started with an email. At 6:47 a.m., I received a message from the HOA board titled, "Formal Review of Your Residency Status." The body was short and cold. "Due to repeated violations, the HOA will hold a special session to determine your continued eligibility to remain within Maplewood subdivision." A translation: Karen was trying to get me kicked out. The meeting was scheduled for Friday. That gave me 3 days to prepare, 3 days to turn the entire neighborhood and the internet in my favor. I called it Operation Sting. Day 1, gather intel. I spent the morning walking Max, casually talking to neighbors. What I learned was gold. Karen had fined Mrs. Parker for unapproved bird feeders. She'd forced the Myers to remove their kid's swing set because it wasn't aesthetically neutral. And she'd yelled at a delivery driver last week for parking too close to her mailbox. The neighborhood hated her. They just needed a reason to speak up. That evening, I uploaded a new video to Max's page, a compilation of his costumes, ending with the line, "He's not aggressive. He's joyful. Every neighborhood needs a little joy." The video blew up overnight. 1.3 million views, thousands of comments, and an avalanche of people saying things like, "Karen needs a hobby. This dog is saving that neighborhood's sanity. Protect Max the bee shepherd at all costs." The next morning, a reporter emailed me asking for an interview. Day 2, Rally the Hive. I printed flyers for a neighborhood unity walk, a simple, peaceful event. Everyone could bring their pets, wear yellow, and show support for community happiness. It wasn't officially an HOA event. It didn't break any laws, and it would happen 1 hour before the hearing. By Thursday afternoon, half the neighborhood had RSVP'd. Even the local paper confirmed attendance. Karen didn't know it yet, but she'd be walking into a public spectacle. Day 3, prepare for the sting. Friday morning. I put Max's bee suit through one last wash, polished his little wings, and clipped on his yellow leash. He looked ready for battle in the most adorable way possible. By 8 a.m., the street was buzzing. Literally, dozens of people walked their dogs, cats, and even one parrot, all wearing bee antennas or yellow scarves. A few kids carried handmade signs. "Be kind. Save Max. No stings, just smiles." Karen's Lexus pulled up slowly. Her face, when she saw the crowd, priceless. Her eyes widened, her mouth fell open, and for once she didn't know what to say. "Good morning, Karen," I called cheerfully. "What's all this?" she demanded. "It's a peaceful walk for positivity," I said. "Totally HOA compliant. You're welcome to join." She didn't reply. Instead, she stormed past me toward the community hall, clipboard in hand like a sword. The hearing started at 9 a.m. Karen sat at the head of the long table, the other 4 board members beside her. I could tell 2 of them weren't thrilled to be there. The cameras from the local paper made them all nervous. "Mr. Carter," Karen began, her tone sugar-coated venom, "you've caused repeated disturbances and openly mocked this association." "Mocked?" I asked. "I'm just living my life with my dog." She slammed a folder shut. "We have evidence of public disruptions, gatherings without notice, and online ridicule of HOA leadership." One of the other board members, Mrs. Lynn, frowned. Online ridicule, that's not exactly an offense. Karen shot her a glare sharp enough to cut glass. It's harassment. I leaned forward. Actually, harassment is when someone sends threatening letters, fines families unfairly, and spies on their neighbors with cameras. The room went silent. Everyone looked at Karen. Then I pulled out my own folder, photographs, Karen yelling at the delivery driver, Karen measuring lawn height with a ruler, Karen's car blocking the fire hydrant for 2 hours. I placed them on the table. Funny how rules only apply one way, I said, the board murmured. Mrs. Lynn whispered something to the man beside her. Karen's composure cracked. This is irrelevant. He's turning the neighborhood against me. No, I said softly. You did that yourself. At that exact moment, the doors opened. Max padded in, led by Mrs. Parker. The board gasped, and the reporter's camera started flashing. He was wearing his bee costume, wings fluttering slightly, a little sign hanging from his neck that said, "Be happy." The crowd outside burst into applause. Karen's face went completely red. "This is outrageous," she shouted. "Remove that animal." But Mrs. Lynn stood up. "Karen, enough. This isn't a dictatorship. The community clearly supports Ethan. You're abusing your position." One by one, the other board members nodded. The decision was unanimous. All fines dropped, all complaints voided. Karen suspended from her position pending review. The room erupted in cheers. I looked down at Max, who wagged his tail like he understood everything. Outside, neighbors swarmed us, laughing and celebrating. Kids took turns hugging Max, while adults shook my hand. Karen stormed out of the building, her clipboard forgotten on the table. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then, as she climbed into her Lexus, she turned to me and said coldly, "This isn't finished. You think you've won, Ethan, but you've made an enemy." Her car sped away. Max barked once, and I couldn't help but smile, because I already had a feeling what Part 4 would bring. The Queen's Revenge. For 2 glorious weeks, peace returned to Maplewood. The air felt lighter, neighbors smiled more, and Max, my once aggressive dog, was now a local hero. The HOA board even invited me to help plan the community fair. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Because deep down, I knew Karen wasn't the type to surrender quietly. And when the storm came, it hit harder than I expected. It started with silence. Karen's house went dark for days. Curtains drawn. No sign of her car. People said she'd gone to stay with her sister in another town. I almost believed that, until the packages started arriving. Every few days, delivery trucks stopped at her house. Boxes marked legal documents. Equipment. Private. And then, one morning, a sleek black SUV appeared in her driveway. 3 men in suits stepped out, carrying folders. Max growled softly as we watched from our porch. "Yeah," I muttered. "That doesn't look like an apology. The return of the Queen. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. sharp." Karen stepped out of her house like a villain in a comeback movie. Perfectly pressed blazer, dark sunglasses, phone in hand. The neighborhood went quiet. She smiled, a cold, confident smile, and she didn't walk toward the HOA boardroom. She walked straight toward my house. "Morning, Ethan," she said sweetly. "Mind if we chat?" I didn't answer, just folded my arms. "What do you want?" "Oh, nothing serious, just to inform you that I've filed a civil complaint for harassment, property defamation, and loss of community trust." I blinked. "What?" She handed me a thick folder. Actual court papers. "You thought you could humiliate me online? Actions have consequences." Then she turned, heels clicking on the pavement, and walked away. The legal sting. For the first time since this started, I felt cornered. A lawsuit meant money, lawyers, time, and stress. I sat on the porch with Max, staring at the papers. He nudged my hand with his nose. "Don't worry, buddy," I sighed. "We've handled worse." I spent the next 2 days digging, and what I found made me smile again. See, Karen wasn't just angry. She was careless. Her civil complaint, filed under her personal name, but using HOA funds. That meant she'd broken multiple association finance laws. So I called in a friend. Enter Sarah Blake. Sarah was my college friend, and a civil rights lawyer who loved dogs more than people. When she heard the story, she laughed for a solid minute. She used HOA money for a personal lawsuit? That's illegal, Ethan. We can turn this around. Sarah drafted a counterclaim, backed by every screenshot, photo, and video we had. By Tuesday, the court documents were officially filed. Karen wasn't expecting that. The neighborhood awakens word spread fast. Soon the entire neighborhood knew Karen had tried to misuse HOA funds. Mr. Jenkins went door to door with a petition to remove her permanently. Mrs. Parker started a GoFundMe for Max's legal defense, which turned into a community fundraiser for animal shelters. Local media picked up the story again. B. Shepherd versus HOA Tyrant, Round 2. By Friday, the story had gone international. Max's page hit 2 million followers, and people started sending us gifts, B-shaped dog toys, treats, even a tiny gold collar tag that said, Neighborhood Defender. But while the internet cheered, Karen was unraveling. The breaking point that evening, I heard a noise outside, a loud thud. I stepped out and saw my trash can tipped over, then another and another. Standing there, flashlight in hand, was Karen, wearing pajamas and muttering angrily as she tossed my garbage across the lawn. "Karen!" I shouted. "What the hell are you doing?" She froze, eyes wild, mascara smudged. "You think you can ruin me?" she screamed. "You think you can turn everyone against me?" "Karen, go home," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You!" She pointed a trembling finger at me. "You'll regret this." Then she stormed off, stumbling over her heels, disappearing into the dark. I just stood there for a moment, Max beside me, ears perked. This wasn't just rivalry anymore. It was obsession, the fallout. The next morning, the HOA board held an emergency session. Without Karen, Sarah joined via video call, calmly presenting the financial records and her misuse of HOA funds. It was over within an hour. Karen Holloway, permanently banned from holding any HOA position. Her lawsuit dismissed with prejudice. Her house put up for sale the very next week. When the news broke, the whole neighborhood gathered outside my yard. Someone brought cupcakes. Someone else made lemonade. Max barked happily, wagging his tail as kids hugged him one after another. For the first time since we moved to Maplewood, I felt truly at home. The unexpected gift a few days later. I received a letter, not from Karen, but from the city council. They'd seen the viral story and wanted to invite Max as the official community wellness ambassador. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. "Buddy," I said to Max, "you've gone from aggressive dog to public hero. How does it feel?" He just rolled over and wagged his tail, but not everything was over. The day before Karen's moving truck arrived, I saw her one last time. She stood on her porch, staring at the for sale sign. For a moment, she didn't look like the enemy. She looked tired, defeated. When our eyes met, she just said softly, "You really love that dog, don't you?" "Yeah," I said. "More than you'll ever understand." She nodded once, then turned away. The truck drove off that afternoon. And for the first time, Maplewood felt calm again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was one last page in this story still unwritten. The B legacy 6 months later, Maplewood had changed. Not just the rules, not just the lawns, the people. Neighbors who once hid behind fences now shared coffee, laughter, and weekend walks. The HOA meetings were friendly, even fun, and at the center of it all was one wagging tail and a pair of buzzing wings. Max had become the soul of the neighborhood. A new beginning every morning. Kids waited at their doors just to see him. He'd trot down the street in his little bee outfit, tail wagging like clockwork. The mailman kept dog treats in his pocket now. Even the grumpy guy from Lot 14 waved hello every day. The city had followed through on their offer too. Max was officially Maplewood's Community Wellness Ambassador. He had an ID badge. And every month we visited local schools to teach kids about kindness and responsibility. Watching him roll over in front of laughing children, I realized this wasn't just my story anymore. It was everyone's. The festival was midsummer when the new HOA president, Mrs. Lynn, announced something special, Maplewood's first annual Bee Fair, a neighborhood festival celebrating unity, laughter, and of course, Max. We hung yellow streamers along the streets, painted little bee symbols on the sidewalks, and set up food stalls. Local vendors brought honey-flavored everything, cookies, cakes, even lemonade. The kids wore antenna headbands, and the highlight of the day, a dog costume parade. There were firefighters, superheroes, astronauts, and in the middle of it all, Max, in his golden bee suit, proudly leading the line. A familiar face as the crowd cheered. I noticed something strange near the edge of the park. A woman standing quietly by the trees, watching. Blonde hair tied back, wearing sunglasses. Karen. I froze. For a second I thought she might cause a scene, but instead she just smiled faintly and waved. It wasn't her usual smug grin. It was soft, apologetic even. I walked over, Max padding beside me. "Didn't expect to see you here," I said. "I moved back," she replied quietly. "Different street." "No HOA this time," I nodded. "Good choice." She looked down at Max. "He's famous now." "Yeah," I smiled. "He's earned it." Karen knelt slowly, holding out her hand. Max sniffed it, then licked her fingers gently. She laughed just once. "Still dressed like a bee, huh?" "Some habits stick," I said. There was a long pause. Then she said softly, "I was wrong about you." "About him," I just nodded. "People change." "Even queens." Karen smiled at that, then stood up. "Take care, Ethan." She walked away without another word. The award, that evening, as the fair lights glowed and music filled the air, Mrs. Lynn took the stage. "Tonight," she said into the microphone, "we honor someone who reminded us what community truly means." She gestured toward me and Max. The crowd erupted in applause. Kids chanted, "Be Shepherd! Be Shepherd!" Max barked once, rolled over, and the laughter nearly shook the park. Mrs. Lynn handed me a plaque for kindness, creativity, and courage. "Thank you for bringing Maplewood back to life." I held it up high as the fireworks started. Gold sparks lit the sky, reflecting in Max's bright brown eyes. A quiet moment. Later that night, after everyone went home, I sat on the porch with Max. The streets were still glowing from fairy lights strung along the fences. Crickets hummed softly. Max rested his head on my lap, letting out a content sigh. "You did it, buddy," I whispered. "You turned everything around." He wagged his tail lazily. And in that peaceful moment I realized something. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't about getting even. It was about proving that kindness can be louder than hate and laughter stronger than fear. The message. The next morning, I uploaded a final video to Max's page. Clips from the fair, Karen smiling in the background. The fireworks, kids hugging Max. The caption read, "People will call your joy too loud, your love too much, your laughter too disruptive. Don't stop, because sometimes the world just needs a bee to remind it to buzz again." It went viral overnight, and for the first time even Karen left a comment. "Beautiful story. Thank you for teaching us all."